Okay, we're back to talk about Black Mirror Season 7, the episode titled Common People. This episode written by Charlie Brooker and Bishop K. Ali, directed by Ali Penku. In this episode, Amanda, a teacher, and Mike, a welder, have their world rocked when Amanda suffers from a brain tumor that could possibly kill her. To save her life, Mike agrees to have a company called Rivermind replace part of her brain with synthetic material that is a copy of her brain that's stored on one of Rivermind's servers. While the surgery is free, the trade-off is a $300 monthly subscription. There's inability to travel outside of the coverage zone, and Amanda will require more sleep to allow the servers to catch up and allow her brain to function. Later, after the surgery is successful, Amanda begins blacking out and communicating ads, causing problems at home and at her job. Rivermind tries to convince them to upgrade to the Plus service for $800 per month and then eventually to an even more expensive Lux service. Unbeknownst to Amanda, Mike has been making some extra money for these by allowing people on the internet to pay him to do humiliating things. This eventually causes Mike to lose his job. They can no longer afford the Plus subscription, which causes Amanda to revert back into becoming miserable and being unable to work. When they find out that if they have a baby, which is something they've been wanting to do, they will be charged even more, Mike sells their baby crib and smothers Amanda with a pillow after she tells him she is ready to die. Um, Quite the commentary on this sort of tiered subscription model world that we live in and having to pay a little bit more for everything and every service, tacking on a little bit of something else. I guess there's sort of this other question of, if you were forced to this trade-off with a loved one of having to put up with this stuff for a few more years with them, would you take it? That's some of the things I've been thinking about. What are the things you've been thinking about with this episode?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a feel-good story, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, this is a rough one. And as you say, there's definitely, I mean, just a kind of obvious commentary on um, the kind of structures of late capitalism, if we want to call it that, which I always say, late capitalism doesn't imply it's going to end.
Yeah.
But I think it's always worth noting. But yeah, the subscription tiers and all of that. And then I mean, of course, you could also take it in the direction of a critique of the healthcare industry, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
uh, I don't know. If we could start with the question, I guess, of whether you would do it. It's tough because in this episode, he's it's not a matter of making the decision for yourself,
Right.
but as you were saying, right, it's a matter of Mike making this decision for his wife, who it does seem is going to die otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, was not conscious, was not able to do this for herself. So there was no other choice but for him to make that decision himself. And he decides, I mean, I try to put myself in these shoes in the best way possible and think if I was faced with this decision, I would think yes, not knowing that you'll eventually be miserable and they will, tack on to the fine print all these things that they can do and not do. I would say yes, I would pay several $100s more a month for, more time with my wife and all I had to do was pay a little bit and she would sleep some more. I mean, absolutely would take that side of it. But then it's just like this idea of the company, and as you talked about, just sort of in the quest for more, digging more out of their customers, just keep adding and adding and adding and saying, well, the only way you're going to get any sort of enjoyment out of this is to keep paying us more and more and go beyond what you're able to.
Yeah, I mean, well, it really has that structure of a forced choice throughout the
Yeah.
episode, right? Which is a one way you can think about exploitation, where it looks like a choice on the surface of things, kind of seems like a choice, but it's not really. Um, Paradigmatically, you could take the example of, your money or your life, which fits relatively literally here, right? But like, if it's Mugger with a gun in your face saying your money or your life, you can't really choose your money, right? Because if the guy's going to shoot you, then you lose both.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is kind of like that, where, of course, at one level, I would expect we could all relate if you're in the situation like Mike is, where the woman that you love has just collapsed out of nowhere because it turns out she's got this inoperable brain tumor. and
Mhm.
the doctors are saying there's nothing they can do, and she's probably never going to regain consciousness or whatever. Well, hey, no, we can do it with this technology, right? At the same time, I don't know, man. I don't know if I might be enough of a Luddite where I would say no. Because as soon as the rep for Rivermind,
Yeah,
Gaynor, who's brilliant in this episode, Tracy Ellis Ross is brilliant in this episode, and I want to make that point along the way here.
definitely.
But as soon as she said something about the like your her mind will be stored on the server and
Yeah.
beamed in through the cloud. It was like that bit that to me that was like, oh no, oh no, no, no. You know
You
what
know
I
what?
mean? Like,
I'm glad you said that because that is something they never really I think examined fully in this episode. Now, plenty of Black Mirror episodes have examined this idea that, well, if you've made a copy of her brain and are storing it on a server, then you have access to things or the ability to, gain certain things or learn certain things about her, about that relationship, about, different things that, you can use for or against that person, right? They don't even dive too much into that, but rather using who she is and the circumstances she's in to filter, certain ads and things through her voice, unbeknownst to her. But yeah, this idea of if the choice is not just death versus life, it is death versus I've got sort of technology controlling my spouse. Yeah, that's a different equation, I think.
right. Well, then it's then you're on a subscription model, and this is part of why I said late capitalism, or however people feel about the term. There is something distinctive about what's happened over the past couple of decades, and you can get at it even just focusing on computer stuff and computer software and all of that, right? Like it used to be that if you wanted, say, Microsoft Word, you just like bought Microsoft Office and now you own the software, right? You
Yes.
have it like on a CD-ROM and so on. And now it's shifted to where it's like, oh no, this is a subscription based thing that depends on the cloud and all of that, right? So I don't know
I
how
wonder.
people go ahead.
No, I was going to say there's. I wonder why. I mean, Amanda and Mike in this episode, they're not dumb. They may have been naive at some of the things that they were agreeing to. But yeah, there was never any discussion of, okay, did you read the fine print? Did you know what you were signing? Did you know what you were getting into? And again, just this commentary on if you force me to make a choice between reading some long legal document and saving my wife who may die at any moment with a brain tumor, there's not much of a choice there. But then, it's sort of this, okay, well, did you know what you were getting into? That certainly is a commentary on, this sort of just accept and move on culture that we're in with all this stuff that we do digitally.
Yeah, and then I mean, there really are the way they take it to this level, as you say. I mean, it is really tough to say. Well, that's where it's not like the Microsoft 365 subscription or the Netflix tiers, which yeah, there's a way in which it's like that, but it's also life or death, right? So you're really on the hook, and so of course, at one level, you'd say, well, however much money it costs we'll figure out how to make it work when the other option is death, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
um but then I think what the part of what the episode's exploring here is, I guess you could put the question almost this way: where they end up, where she ends up, is that worse than death?
Okay, I was going to ask you this exact same question because I would argue certainly that it is. Where she's
Yeah,
at is worse than a state of death. And what he has had to put himself through financially with his job, with what he does and dumb dummies and all these million things he's had to do, is that a fate that you would accept? And again, it's just this question of would you accept, would I want a few more what end up being mostly miserable years with my wife if that was our life and I don't know what decision I could make there.
yeah, I think for me it's particularly the ads, you know
Yes.
for
Yes.
that element is really brilliant in the show. I mean, and the fact that she's not aware that she's doing ad reads
Yeah.
But that's the bit that's the most kind of terrifying thing to me. The idea of just all of a sudden starting to do some ad read for honey puffs or whatever. And I mean, I thought too they did a good job of making it different things in slightly different contexts and kind of exploring all these various ways it could mess up your life, right? Like
Exactly.
her recommending the Christian counseling to the kid at school is almost the worst one. Uh, but then there's also her doing the ad read for lube when they're having sex. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Major buzzkill, babe.
but that's interesting in and of itself, to say what I'm saying, because it's like, okay, it's a fate worse than death. Is it? I guess I really think it is,
Yeah.
to have a life where every so often you're just kind of losing control and don't know that you've said what you've said, and what you've said is an advertisement for a product, that
Yeah. And
violation is that bad.
it
Yeah, but
causes you to be unemployable and it causes you to have, yeah, a strained relationship. Yeah. Why would you endure something like that? I mean, like I said, eventually they come to this decision, it seems like after a number of years, but clearly that's not what Rivermind is putting up front on the poster when they're when they're trying to sell this thing.
yeah, it's interesting. And then also, that's one of the things the episode's clearly playing with, right? Is that, oh, these companies just change things, right? So, you mentioned, well, did you read all the fine print in the terms of service or whatever? And yeah, it's fair enough that often we probably don't, and just click I agree or whatever. But even if you do, what you're probably going to get is some kind of, vague legalistic language that tells you that they can change things. Um, and it does bother me with real world examples how so much of this stuff just changes and changes in little waves. And um, there is a real sense in which you don't have a choice often, but to accept that change. If I'm making sense here, I'm thinking of smaller scale stuff again, like with that software
Yeah.
subscription, and then they made little changes how Microsoft Word works, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I think about this all the time. It's sort of that trade-off, this idea of, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to not have a cell phone? Am I going to not
Right.
have some of these certain conveniences or things that are just necessary because I don't want to opt into a legal thing that I haven't read? No, and if it came down to, a decision like this, absolutely, I'm gonna, at the very beginning of his journey there for Mike, yeah, absolutely, I'm not going to go without what I truly want, which is to be with my spouse on this, at the expense of some kind of thing I haven't read.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some other things that are in here. I noted a couple of things that are really more along the lines of Easter eggs and anything else. I'm sure there are other people out there who may have noticed more than I caught on the initial watch here. I don't know. We're not going to, focus on Easter eggs necessarily, but probably worth mentioning. You've got the autonomous robotic bees that were in Hated in the Nation. In that episode, those bees were used to kill people ultimately.
Yes.
Um, if we are at all playing with the idea that all of the Black Mirror episodes exist in the same universe, I would thus place this one before Hated in the Nation, probably, I guess.
Yeah, but
Um,
she's explaining them, yeah, explaining it to an elementary school class, right? So that would make sense.
yeah, like it's a new thing, right?
Right.
Of course, the place that they go to celebrate their anniversary is called Juniper. You relate that to San Junipero. We get the song that's in a ton of Black Mirror episodes. Anyone who knows what love is, the lounge singer is singing there. That just feels like an Easter egg to me.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I mean, I think there are people out there who want to read into something about that song, but I'm not really one of them. I feel like it's just one of those things where Charlie Brooker or whatever is like, well, we're gonna have a song. Let's sneak this in there.
I
It does
think
seem good.
No, no, I was going to ask just along that line. I know I asked you for clarification on this, and you were right. I was thinking about this idea of the dumb dummy site that Mike eventually, finds his way on. And while you were right, there's not a reference to anything like that. It made me think of the Shut Up and Dance episode, where there
Yeah.
is someone virtually manipulating people, because they have things on them, and there's not payment exchange there, but this idea of you're going to do what I want because you have no other option. So again, not the same thing, or similar concepts.
Yeah, it's a very Black Mirror kind of thing, as I said to you when you asked, well, has this been a previous episode? I mean, it kind of feels like it. Um, let's talk about Dumb Dummies a little bit more. Man, it is one of those things where it feels unfortunately realistic.
Yes.
The only thing that I questioned a little bit, and I want to be sure to put this right, the amount of money he seemed to be getting felt low to me, not in terms of like I think it might be possible that people might be so desperate that they would like drink a glass of urine for $50.
Yeah.
It seemed low to me in the sense of him being able to make enough money from it to pay for the river mind.
Yeah, and it made me also think about the economics of like who sets the price per, act that is done. Is it the one that is voluntarily doing it, or the ones who are paying for it? And we get him on, see him doing what, maybe 4 or 5 different things, and it's implied he's done some others. But yeah, I mean, what 3 or so years pass across this, and they're looking at one point to pay $300 a month and 500 extra more dollars a month and another thousand, so it's what all is he having to do? Because yeah, putting a mousetrap on his tongue for $60 or whatever, you're gonna have to do that a whole heck of a lot to be able to pay for this subscription.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was thinking, So it's like it almost needs to be a little bit more money for the financials to work out, because you might say, oh, well, you could do more extreme things. But even the mousetrap on the tongue, I don't know. I don't know if we could, quickly look this up on the internet, but it seems like that would not only hurt, but kind of injure your tongue.
And you can pass it off apparently as just having bit your tongue. Yeah, I think you're gonna have a bruised tongue, if not a, yeah, cut tongue for
Like,
quite a while.
yeah, you're saying like a lacerated tongue. So I don't know. I don't know. Um, I briefly considered trying to look into whether there was anything like this that currently exists, and then decided I didn't want that in my search history.
I think that's a good idea.
Um, well, I mean, of course, one thing that comes to mind that I know exists is a site like OnlyFans,
Yeah.
um, and they didn't really play with that here. I mean, I guess some of the stuff that he ended up doing was a little bit sexual. Um, of course, I think I don't have any real direct experience with OnlyFans for the record. Nothing against it necessarily, No, I'm serious. I'm not trying to like demean sex
No,
workers,
I mean,
whatever. But I don't have experience with them.
nor do I.
Um,
I can't really speak to its model and how similar it might be.
I believe the platform is a lot like this, and um, I don't think it has to be sex stuff. So that's part of what I started wondering. Like, are there people out there who have like OnlyFans sites that are more along these lines already? I think it's a possibility, but maybe that would be against their terms of service if you're getting into self-harm and stuff like that.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe I could have looked into that a little bit more, but definitely, to my understanding, it can be along those lines of hey, if I get enough donations, I will do X, right? Or then maybe there is a chat where people are spurring the person to do something by offering money, and then they can't say no. It's like so that there's a similarity, but I did think it was interesting how Black Mirror decided here to play with it just in terms of like I don't know, self degradation and self harm. And of course, the disturbing thing is that you can well imagine someone like Shane who would watch this and pay people money to have them do this stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. Exactly. Yeah. The commentary on the fact that there is apparently a huge audience of people looking to spend their money on things like this.
Right. Yeah. It's like it's depressing because it's plausible. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Um, so
That'd be
yeah.
a good tagline for this show. Depressing because it's plausible.
Yeah, Black Mirror. Yeah. Um, let's see what else. I've got a couple other things I wanted to hit on. So I was going to mention right before there's kind of reference to San Junipero, but it also seems like in the technology there's a connection here. At least it landed that way for me, where it felt like this technology would be a precursor of sorts to what we get in San Junipero. Does that make sense to
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, the idea that especially that copies of the brain, brains being stored on servers, being able to put things in the brain without people being aware of it, and as what happened with Amanda several times, sort of checking out and going to a place or being removed from herself, so other things happen. It seems like, yeah, this is the version 1.0 of what we eventually see in San Junipero.
Yeah, I could see it going in that direction for sure. And then the sleep mode, I want to hit on just briefly. I don't know how much
Mhm.
there's to say about it, but I love that moment. It's like, but it's not restful. It's not like sleep. Oh, that's because it's sleep mode. And when you're in sleep mode, we're actually harnessing the energy from your brain. You're like, oh, of course you
Yeah.
are.
We're making your brain work overtime while you sleep. Yeah.
Well, you quote unquote sleep. Yeah, yeah. Well, you want to talk about the idea of the Lux subscription and being able to manipulate your emotions and things like that a little bit?
Yeah, this was I thought a pretty prescient commentary on the idea that we are almost to the point, I mean, today where people will spend anything or do anything to make themselves feel better, feel happier, feel more accomplished, feel more accepted. This idea of, yeah, if you could make it a subscription where you can control your emotions to whatever extent you want at any time you want. What would people pay for this? $10,000 a month? $100,000 a month? I mean, you could sell this for whatever you wanted.
Yeah, yeah. That's all, I mean, if people can afford it and so on.
Yeah.
Their price on that one was ultimately what? Something like $1,800 a month.
Yes, you were
Um,
already at the plus, and you add $1,000 for the all of the amenities that come with the Lux version, being able to control any emotion or feeling with just a touch of your app.
yeah. Plus is now standard though.
Yes, that's right.
Um,
That's right. That's right.
don't forget. Um, I don't know. I mean, yeah, this is one of those where at one level you definitely think like if you could just on an app dial up your pleasure meter or your serenity or whatever, how cool. And yeah, people would pay a lot of money for it, but it definitely is one of those where another part of me starts feeling like, oh, well, this totally, I don't know, like undermines the meaning of existence or something to have that level of control. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts like that here?
Just would you ever be able to have an authentic emotion ever again? Or
That's what
would
I
you know
mean.
what
Yeah.
that felt like? Yeah, just the essence of like you were saying, living is this roller coaster of emotions and experiences and stresses and if you can just control that out anytime you want, yeah, what exactly is the point? Just go into sleep mode all the time and just make yourself feel certain things.
Yeah. I mean, of course, we already do things like that, but
Right.
uh, it's sort of interesting to explore the thought of how maybe having that level of complete control brings out something disturbing, whereas without it being that complete, maybe you don't quite think about it being disturbing. I don't know.
Yeah, I just you for as much as Amanda was in many ways removed from herself, even though you know, Mike felt like it was his wife. To go to this Lux service really removes the person away from, who he knew her to be and can make her anyone that he wants. I mean, I think that's again the opposite of what it means to be in a relationship with someone. If you can manipulate them to be whatever they want whenever you want, that's about as inauthentic as you can be.
Yeah. I like how you put it before, right? that if we all really had this Lux package and could control our emotions or sensitivity or whatever, right? You have all these meters to calibrate pleasure versus serenity and all that kind of stuff. That would anything ever be authentic again?
Exactly.
Um, and yeah, I kind of think it couldn't be, I mean, so that's interesting. Thoughts about the very end? I mean, of course, his mothers were with a pillow. Part of me worried for a moment that she wouldn't die. I don't know if you had that thought at all.
Yeah. So, okay, yes, because it's like, what else is Rivermind able to manipulate where they can, like wasn't one of the things in Lux like you can learn karate or you can learn
Yeah,
parkour? So it's like, what's to keep them from giving her strength or agility in that moment to get out of it? So they have to keep paying, that type of situation.
right. That's part of what I was imagining, and I wonder if they talked about this at all as a writing idea.
Yeah.
Um, like he smothers her with the pillow, but then she wakes back up, and the only way out of it would be to let the subscription expire or something,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And like you can't even take that control of a suicide or a murder or whatever. I wondered if they would play with that, and they decided not to. They very well could have. I'm thinking like you go on to Netflix or whatever, and you cancel your Netflix, right? But you still have Netflix for the rest of the month.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I thought they might play with that a little bit, and they didn't. Maybe it's better that they didn't. Um, in terms of what happens next at the very end, do you think that Mike is about to kill himself with that box cutter, or how do you read that? How do you read the very ending of the episode?
I was sort of, I was thinking a lot about this, and to me, it almost read as either A, he's gotten so addicted to this idea of doing things to himself to earn money, or he's at a position where he cannot do anything else. He must do this to earn money. So it's gotten more extreme, more severe, more harmful. But he can't get out of it. But I can't dismiss the idea that perhaps he's just sort of addicted to it at this point.
That's interesting. So you think that perhaps he's going in there to get on dumb dummies and cut himself for money?
Yeah, yeah, something like that. I certainly think that he might have, after doing that to Amanda, lost the will to live. Certainly willing to believe that. Um, but I'm also willing to believe in the Black Mirror universe that you don't get out that easy, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and part of me was playing with the thought that he's about to go on there and kill himself for money, but that's sort of weird because money for whom at that point?
Right.
Um,
Right.
but still, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting that they kind of leave it open a little bit, and you have to interpret the look on his face as he closes the door or whatever. But that is the room where he's done the dumb dummy stuff. So
Yes.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, my most immediate read was probably that um, he was going to end his own life, but we don't know for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I enjoy these endings like that where it certainly is open to interpretation. Let me figure out what I think would happen as opposed to just showing me.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that also. Um, all right, anything else you want to hit on this one? I mean, I thought it was a pretty good episode. Fairly happy with it as
I
my
was just gonna
first.
say, I really enjoyed this episode. It's not one of the ones that maybe got a lot of publicity or hype coming in, and the Rashida Jones and Chris O'Dowd, I thought it was tremendous. They were believable. I enjoyed their relationship. I just thought this was a great episode.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I was going to say more about Tracy Ellis Ross and Gaynor. That character, man, just the way that she embodies that kind of corporate attitude, and reminding me ever so slightly of like Natalie and Severance, which was also
Yes.
good. But like in the same kind of space of, hey, I'm just a mouthpiece for this corporation. I have no power. There's
Yeah.
nothing I can do. even if I wanted to, maybe I do want to, and just the kind of detachment. And when she mentions that, they say something about the baby fund, she's like, oh, just so you know, if you get pregnant, that costs extra. I'm just letting you know. I'm just
Yeah,
giving you information, right?
I'm on your side, really, I am, but just have to tell you, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, really great performances in here, and maybe not the most novel thing, but at this point, it's Black Mirror doing Black Mirror type things. I'll take it. Well, that was one of my complaints about season 6 is a lot of those episodes just didn't feel sufficiently like Black Mirror to me. This does. So, um, so far so good. What I'm
Yeah,
saying.
could not agree more. Looking forward to the next one.
Cool. All right. So we will be back next week, talking about season 7, episode 2, if we're allowed to number them in such ways. But the next episode up will be Bête Noire, which would be in Black Beast, right? So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully you will join us. Thanks as always for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, please do leave a good rating, review, all that good stuff. If you're on YouTube, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Check out tvobsessive.com. We will have articles, breaking down, analyzing each episode of this season of Black Mirror. Those are in the works. And already you can find articles on every episode of Black Mirror through season 6, as well as written work on any number of other TV shows. So please do check out the site. And you can follow TV Obsessive on social media. If you search for TV Obsessive, you should find us on whatever platform you're looking for us on. And we'll be back next week.
All right, looking forward to that, and we'll see you next time.